If you hear the words ghost city, you probably picture empty deserts or abandoned mining towns, not glass towers, subway stations, and billion-dollar downtowns. But across the US, major city centers now feel strangely hollow at street level, even though nothing technically went wrong. Jobs still exist, money still flows, buildings still stand. What disappeared was the daily human presence that made these places feel alive. And once that vanished, everything else began to unravel in subtle ways. These cities didn't collapse overnight. They emptied slowly through job loss, remote work, planning mistakes, and one massive shock that changed downtown life forever. Let's go straight with our first city and why they ended up this way. 1. San Francisco. San Francisco didn't collapse. It simply stopped showing up. Walk through the financial district at lunchtime, and you'll see immaculate sidewalks, spotless glass towers, and entire blocks where nothing is technically wrong, yet everything feels missing. Office vacancy sits around 35%, which means roughly 1 out of every 3 desks downtown no longer has a human attached to it. BART exits are below 40% of pre-pandemic levels, and when the commuters disappear, the cafes, shops, and random lunchtime chaos disappear with them. The twist is that downtown San Francisco was never designed to survive this. It wasn't a mixed-use neighborhood with families and corner groceries. It was a white-collar engine, optimized for tech workers who vanished overnight. The city now pays artists and pop-up shops to occupy empty storefronts under programs literally called Vacant to Vibrant, which sounds optimistic until you realize governments don't invent those names unless things are bad. And if the most powerful tech city in the country can't refill its streets, the next cities on this list never stood a chance. 2. Detroit. Detroit doesn't feel empty because people stopped coming downtown. It feels empty because entire neighborhoods were physically erased. Over the last decade, the city demolished more than 25,000 houses, not as an aesthetic choice, but because abandonment had already won. Where there were once blocks of homes, there is now grass, broken sidewalks, and the occasional lonely porch light still glowing at night. Downtown Detroit has actually improved, with office vacancy dipping into single digits before 2020. But step just a few miles outward, and the city turns into something surreal. Streets designed for density now lead nowhere. The famous ruins like Michigan Central Station became cultural icons precisely because they symbolized a city that felt paused in time. The twist is that Detroit didn't just lose population, it lost physical structure. And once buildings are gone, recovery becomes a very different kind of puzzle. Cleveland learned this the slow way. 3. Cleveland. Cleveland looks alive until you pick the wrong day. Go during a playoff game or summer festival, and the place feels electric. Visit on a random Wednesday afternoon, and downtown feels like it missed a meeting with the future. The city has lost over 40% of its population since its mid-century peak, and hybrid work finished the job by erasing daytime foot traffic almost entirely. Bars that once survived on lunch crowds now open late or not at all. Retail waits for people who never arrive. The strange part is that locals celebrate the fact that Cleveland has stopped shrinking, plateauing around 360,000 residents, which tells you just how low expectations had fallen. The contrast between crowded stadiums and silent streets makes Cleveland feel less like a failed city and more like one that only wakes up on special occasions. Buffalo followed a similar path, but with even fewer comeback moments. 4. Buffalo. Ask longtime Buffalo residents about downtown, and you'll hear the same sentence over and over again. It used to be busy. Department stores, lunch counters, office crowds, and streets that actually felt central. Then came decades of industrial decline, followed by planning decisions that closed Main Street to cars and quietly drained street life away. Since the pandemic, downtown Buffalo has reportedly lost around 30,000 workers, which is catastrophic for a city of its size. Even on weekdays, parts of downtown feel underused, not dangerous, just forgotten. The eerie part is that this wasn't sudden. It was a slow, almost polite disappearance. Buffalo's story shows how downtowns don't die in one dramatic moment, they fade. Baltimore tried to avoid that fate with spectacle, and for a while, it worked. 5. Baltimore. Baltimore's Inner Harbor was once the national blueprint for urban revival. Tourists, conventions, retail, waterfront dining, all neatly packaged into a place that felt alive by design. But design's age. Office vacancy downtown now hovers around 30%, and major employers have quietly moved thousands of workers out of historic towers, leaving behind dark windows and silent lobbies. Here's the twist that messes with perception. Crime downtown actually dropped in 2024, with shootings and car theft falling sharply. Yet viral videos and outdated narratives still scare visitors away. So you end up with a place that feels emptier than the data suggests, a victim of reputation rather than reality. Baltimore shows how downtowns can lose energy even when conditions improve, and St. Louis proves what happens when oversupply meets indifference. 6. St. Louis. St. Louis didn't stop building offices when demand slowed. It kept going. When remote work hit, the city was left with too much space and too few reasons to fill it. Downtown vacancy climbed past 20%, with some estimates pushing closer to a quarter of all space sitting empty. What makes St. Louis unsettling is how fast it changes block by block. Walk down Market Street and everything looks fine. Turn one corner and you're surrounded by shuttered storefronts and faded signs advertising businesses that vanished years ago. The residential population downtown nearly doubled between 2010 and 2020, yet it still wasn't enough to offset the loss of daily workers. St. Louis proves that adding residents helps, but only if the city gives them somewhere worth walking to. Oklahoma City is learning that lesson in real time. 7. Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's skyline looks healthy until you realize how many floors aren't being used. Downtown office vacancy reached about 27% by 2024, and locals argue that number understates the emptiness because it excludes entire underused towers. Lobbies are clean, elevators still work, but the 9-to-5 crowd never fully return. The city is now converting old office buildings into apartments and hotels, hoping that people living downtown can replace workers who no longer commute. It's a gamble, and one that many cities are making simultaneously. OKC feels like a case study in progress, a downtown caught between what it was built for and what it needs to become. The Bay Area took that gamble earlier, and the results are already visible. 8. Bay Area. San Francisco isn't alone. Across the Bay Area, downtowns designed entirely around white-collar commuters are stuck in a feedback loop that urban analysts now openly call the doom loop. Office workers leave, foot traffic drops, shops close. Streets feel unsafe. More people avoid them. Repeat. In San Francisco alone, over 1 million square feet of office space went vacant in a single year, and high rents didn't save it. Expensive doesn't mean vibrant. It just means fragile when conditions change. These downtowns were optimized for a version of work that no longer dominates, and retrofitting an entire urban core is far harder than building one from scratch. The Bay Area proves that the future of downtowns won't be decided by skylines or transit maps, but by whether cities can convince people to actually be there. These downtowns aren't dead, they're waiting for new reasons to exist, new rhythms, and new kinds of daily life that don't depend on 9-to-5 office badges. Some will adapt, some won't, but all of them remind us that cities are fragile in ways we rarely notice until the streets go quiet. I'll keep finding the world's hidden corners. You just have to click subscribe to come along.